Hello, this is Duane Roen. Tonight is June 23rd, 2022. I'm with Tim McBurney at the Pyle Recreation Center in Tempe. Welcome, Tim. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. So let's start with the beginning. When and where were you born?
Born in St. Louis, Missouri, 5/10/1949. And I
Good
wasn't
year.
planned. Good year, yeah. I think I was a C-section because I was 11 pounds 8 ounces, so back then it was kind of dangerous. But anyway.
Oh, that's big. Oh my word. So when did your family move to Tempe, and why did they come here?
Well, we moved to Arizona in 1958 and Tempe in 1960. And part of the reason we moved here is my dad was a bookie back when the 40s and early 50s. And Senator Kefauver and Senator John F. Kennedy busted up the largest bookie firm in America, which my dad set the odds for. So we kind of escaped to Colorado. We bought a 1,000-acre ranch in 1954 with cash because we were rich then. And then the government caught up to us, and we had to pay $60,000 in back taxes in 1957, and then we moved out here.
So how old were you when you were aware of those kinds of details?
Probably not really aware of it until high school.
Okay.
I mean, I remember my dad and my mom used to take us to Vegas in the 60s when I was in high school, and we would stay at the plushest room, and we would eat at the plushest places, and I had no idea why. And then I started asking questions, and these were all the guys that used to work for my dad as runners. He was the odds maker, and so he knew them all the guys that started the casinos in Vegas. So it was kind of an interesting story. And so
did you find it exciting when you
I got a lot of information about my dad.
Okay.
And then my mom too, because her dad was a bootlegger in St. Louis and used to bring all the whiskey up from the Mississippi River from Cuba in the Prohibition years.
Okay. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, so I'm glad I went into teaching.
I understand. So tell us a little bit more about your family. You said a little bit about your parents, a little bit about grandparents. How about siblings?
And I have my brother who was 7 years older, and he went to Scottsdale High and ASU. And my sister, Madge, and she's still alive. My brother's deceased, but they were just, older, and I always looked up to them. Obviously, that they were, the people I tried to fashion my life after. They were hard workers. And my sister worked at ASU for 30 years.
What did she do there?
She worked at the ASU Foundation, and back in the 80s, 90s, she learned how to program when nobody taught her. She was self-taught, and so did just an outstanding job with a high school degree, not a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
My brother graduated from college and worked at Gilliland Junior High for 30 years.
Okay, very good. And what did he teach?
BE.
BE. Okay, runs in the family.
Yes, I was a business teacher.
Okay.
I taught business, and then after, I was one of the first teachers to start a computer class, because that was actually going to be my major, quantitative statistics. But I was getting C's and B's, and Honeywell only hired A students. So I switched to education.
Very good. Oh, a lot of people are glad you did. Glad you did. So, who influenced you, including family and other people, when you were a child or a young adult? And how did they influence you?
I had some good teachers, but it was really my family. My brother and my sister. My dad was a very tough man. very honorable, but very tough. And my mom was very influential in my religious background.
Mhm. Okay. And who were some of the teachers that?
Well, I look back on my coaches primarily, Howard Wynn and John Zuko. They were track coaches. And in fact, after I became a teacher and for 20 years, I started the Wynn Zuko Tempe Relays, named after those two because they were a positive influence on my life.
Okay, what a nice tribute to them.
Yeah.
Very good. Besides what you've already told us about your family, which is pretty exciting stuff, are there any other family stories that you'd like to share about any family traditions or fun memories or places where you went growing up in Tempe?
Well, as far as personally, one of my favorite times was getting on my bike. I was about Alameda and Mill, and I would ride down to Tempe Beach and go to Pete's Fish and Chips and do all of that in a day for under $1. Get a monster burger and fries and entry into Tempe Beach. And back my first couple years of going to Tempe Beach, the bottom of the pool was sand. It wasn't concrete, cool deck. It was sandy, and then they redid it obviously, and then they made it into a. But everybody went there. It was just the only place to go.
So what was visibility like in the pool? If
It was dirty. It was,
yeah.
You didn't open your eyes much.
Right. Are there other places in Tempe that stand
Yeah,
out
the
to you?
river bottom. We used to. I ran track, and as an athlete, you'd always want to run in the sand. So we had places set up where we would run sprints in the sand, and then we would run up and down a mountain as a workout. Those were things that how it seemed fun at the time. We enjoyed it because it was hard work, and we used to just run down, to a mountain from Tempe or run down to the river bottom before obviously Tempe Town Lake was there.
Okay.
And those were things that were enjoyable. I mean, they were just, it was a group of us that just worked extremely hard and had great years at Tempe High.
Okay.
That's where I went to high school.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So, are there other places that you remember from when you were a younger person, high school or in
Well, I went to Broadmoor.
Broadmoor?
And I went to McCamey.
Mm-hmm.
So this was before they redid Broadmoor as it is today, and before McCamey got shut down. But it was just a great experience. I remember I had a shop teacher named Ray Prokopchek, and my first day in class, he was a wood and metal teacher at McCamey, and he'd been there for a few years, and he was good friends with my dad. I found out that day, my first day of class, he brought me up to the front and told me to grab my ankles and swatted me. And I said, what do I do? He goes, your dad told me to do that. So, I mean, that was kind of the way it was. So corporal punishment disappeared soon after that.
I understand. Were there any businesses, restaurants, cafes, other places that when you were younger that you liked to hang out at?
Well, my parents, after we moved from Scottsdale, my dad opened up the Happy House. It was a card, gifts, and candy store in Tempe Center. And it was right between Americana and Bricky's Furniture. Those were the two stores that were in between. So I was always down at Tempe Center. And there was a place called the Tepia Toys, which, obviously when I was in elementary school, it was a good place to go to. And the owner there was a good friend with my dad. And I remember years later hearing the story that he came down to offer my dad some shares of stock in a new company. And he said, I think we could make a lot of money here. Well, we didn't have any extra money. We had a pair of shoes and a pair of pants, like a lot of kids did, and that's what we had. Well, the guy about 5 years later, retired a millionaire because he bought McDonald's,
Oh.
and we didn't. So anyway, that was probably Tempe Center.
Okay.
Is the place that I really remember the most. And ASU, because my mom worked over there, and my brother went to school there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And of the places that were there, which ones do you miss the most?
Well, you wouldn't recognize Tempe nowadays. If somebody left 10 years ago and came back, they wouldn't have any idea this was still Tempe, because it's really changed. It's no small businesses now, a lot of high rises.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your time at Tempe High School as a student. I know that you were a very successful football and track athlete. And
not so much football. I hurt myself my sophomore year. I tore ligaments in my knees. So we didn't have insurance, and my dad was friends with Dr. Scott, who was the ASU team physician, and he just recommended I not play basketball or football anymore because of cutting and planting, and so said, yeah, you can run track all you want to because it's just pretty much a straight line. But so I ran track at Tempe High, and I still hold the school record, obviously, for the 800. So, and I, loved football though. That was my love, and I was kind of heartbroken that but I wasn't going to argue with my dad. I watched my brother. He would get paddled, and every time he got in trouble, he'd add another shingle to the paddle. So I didn't do stuff like that. I paid attention and made sure I toed the line.
What position in football did you play?
I was quarterback and outside linebacker, and then in track I ran the 400 and 800.
Okay.
And then back then we didn't have enough money to obviously pay for college, so we had to get a scholarship. And my sister, they didn't have women's athletics, so she was a real good tennis player, but they didn't have that. They had GAA. And so she wasn't able to go to college, but both my brother and myself got scholarships to Mesa Community for me, and to ASU, and for him, ASU. And we both ran track there.
Okay.
For Baldy Castile.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you played, in football, you played both offense and defense.
I was a backup.
Oh, okay.
In my class, there was a quarterback who was all-state, named Buddy Davis, who was star athlete of the school.
Okay.
He was a football, basketball, track athlete.
Okay. And in track, the 800 was the event you
That was
preferred
the
more
event
than the
that
400?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you prefer the 800 over the 400?
I didn't. I just didn't have enough speed to run the 400 and win
Okay.
consistently. So 800 became my race.
Okay. Oh, okay. Great story. And then tell us a little bit about your experience at Mesa Community College and ASU.
Well, I was going to go to ASU and run track, and I took freshman English. And coming out of high school, I just thought I'll get started early. So during the summer, I took freshman English. And out of 16 of us, 10 of us flunked, and I was one of the ones that flunked the freshman English class. And I just got freaked out, and I said, well, I'm going to go to Mesa. So I went to Mesa for 2 years and qualified for the Nationals, and got 6th place both years in the Nationals. And then I went on to ASU.
Okay. And tell us about
I led it over there. I wasn't quite good enough. In fact, the fastest time I ever ran in my life was 1:51.2, and I was dead last. And it was at the Coliseum, and it was UCLA, USC, and BYU. And I just thought, I'm really out of my league. I'm never gonna, I had visions of going to the Olympics and doing all that, but that ended that pretty quick.
Okay. Okay. And say a little bit more about your academic experience at MCC and ASU?
Well, I got an AA degree, General Studies. Then I went to ASU, and I was very interested in computers. And this is obviously before. This is when we had the stack cards, the punch cards.
I used
and
them
you
too.
would carry them around, and you'd stick them in the machine, run your program, find your error, redo that card, and then if you ever dropped them, it was a nightmare. There's nothing you could do but start all over. Anyway, so I did that for my junior year, and I got through, and I worked for Honeywell in the basement of the Moore building at ASU. That was my part-time job, and I ran track. And that's where one of the bosses from Honeywell said, you got to get straight A's or we're not hiring you. And you'll go back to school after you graduate, and we'll retrain you. And that's when I switched to education.
Okay.
And that was a good move for me, just because my brother would always, every time I talked to him, he was a PE and teacher at Gilliland and a coach at Gilliland, and he just seemed like he had fun every day. Mm-hmm. And I'm stuck in this little cubicle writing programs. And it wasn't fun. It was probably more money, obviously, but I did not enjoy it as much as listening to him, so that was a good change I made.
Mm-hmm. You're lucky to have worked with him. And I should ask you this about high school too. When you were in college and also in high school, did you have jobs? I know you were busy
Always
with sports.
worked. Yeah, we didn't have much money, so if I wanted a vehicle or I wanted spending money, you had to work. Mm-hmm. And so I worked for Kemper Goodwin for 2 years. It was a really good paying job, and I'd clean their architectural firm down on 5th Street. They had a big building down there next to where the pyramid is, mm-hmm. the upside down pyramid. Anyway, and so that was probably, when I was young, I used to cut grass. I worked for Safeway, and I carry out and all that stuff. So I did all those jobs. In the summer, I'd work for Elmer Bradley, and I'd clean up homes, and then I would carry in mud for bricklayers, and I was carrying tar for roofers, and I go, I'm going to college and getting a degree. I'm not going to do this the rest of my life, because I saw guys that were, in their 40s and 50s and were still doing that. Mm-hmm. I said, that's not for me.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's talk a little bit about your experience coaching. 12 seasons coaching football and track at Tempe High, 4A state title in 1996, semifinals in 95 and 2001. You opened Basha High School, and you were there 2002 to 2011, as I understand it. In 2007, inducted into the Arizona Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Tell us a little bit about your coaching experience. And by the way, is that award from coaching or from?
No, this one is from the 1984 Olympics. I worked as a volunteer.
Oh.
And we got a gold medal.
Oh.
There was 10 of us volunteers that got gold medals.
Well, before we talk about your coaching, tell us about
this experience. I had an opportunity to work as a volunteer, or apply as a volunteer for the 84 Olympics. We had somebody named Bill Graham who had worked prior Olympics in the United States as security. So we got on as, myself and one of my friends, Curtis Cook, got on as access controllers. And so we went over there and stayed for the 2 weeks. And we worked double shifts, and we did whatever we needed to do, because that was free food. The more you worked, the more food you got. Mm-hmm. So that we didn't have much money. So, and we got about 3 days in, and we had got kicked out of the place we were going to stay. There was a misunderstanding. It was supposed to be a friend of Bill Graham's, but he didn't want us there after we. Anyway, so we told our boss that we have to go back, and he put us up in the Olympic Village then. Because he goes, no, I can't have you guys leave because you guys work double duties all the time. Mm-hmm. So it was a boxing venue and track and field.
Okay.
So it was a great experience.
Yeah. What do you remember most from that experience?
probably people calling, and this is when I would call back, because me and my wife were dating at that time, and they would video, and they said, "You're on TV." The whole time, because the TVs were sitting right across, and I'd be in charge of the media center. So it was like I'm right on the other side of the ring. And then one of the experiences I had was Sylvester Stallone and I can't remember her name now, an actress came in, and they had VIP for ringside. So and I was in charge of ringside. And I just looked at Sylvester Stallone, I said, "God, he's little." He came up to like right here. I was just shocked. He didn't have his high platform shoes on, and that was kind of fun. So it was really a great experience.
That's great. I don't think we got the shot of your medal. Would you hold that up so I can make sure we get it on camera?
Sure.
Okay. So hold it at least this high. A little higher. There we go. There we go. Thank you.
That's the front, and this is the back.
All right, and tell us what's on the front and the back.
Well, just Los Angeles, 1984, and it's not these same gold medals that athletes get. This is the gold medal they made for just certain dignitaries that were in charge of venues and the top, I think, 10 or 15 volunteers.
Wow. Wow.
Which both me and Curtis got.
What a keepsake.
Yeah,
What a keepsake.
so it was pretty cool.
What a keepsake. So tell us more about your coaching career.
Well, I graduated from ASU in 71, and that was during the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when they had the lottery. My birthday came in at 60.
I was
So at
25.
the end of February of my senior year, I had to go in for my physical. But because I had floating meniscus in both knees, I was 4F.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't end up going to Vietnam, and I ended up getting a teaching job because Gary Hall, who was a typing teacher at Tempe, took a doctorate sabbatical for 1 year. So I got that job. So I was lucky I got, a job coming out, and it was at Tempe High, so I was still calling everybody Mr. and Mrs. And they go, no, you call us by our first name. I couldn't get used to it. Anyway, so after that year was over, I was coaching 3 sports. I did my student teaching under Alan Benedict the year before, and I coached 3 sports. And I found I just loved coaching. Just something I really enjoyed. And then Gary came back the following year, so I was out of a job. Well, Alan Benedict, who was a head football coach, left and went to Mesa Community College, and I got that job. And so it was just everything fell into place.
So if you're coaching football, wrestling, and track, you're coaching all year long.
I started football, basketball with Sam Duane and track. And then I evolved into wrestling instead of basketball.
Okay.
Because it was more, basketball players back then didn't play multiple sports. They just played basketball. Wrestling played football and threw the shot and disc and track, so good crossover.
Okay. What are your fondest memories of coaching?
Oh, the athletes, the just great kids. We were just really fortunate to have. I mean, I think throughout, things people always ask over 47 years, has thing changed? And I said, kids haven't. Parents have, but kids are the same. Kids, they want to be told no when they're wrong, and they want to be shown the correct way to do things. And I've enjoyed them all the years. I mean, so there's not, and as probably winning a state title, yeah, it's a highlight, going to the semis. We were state runner-ups in track in 1987. Coaching my sons was awesome. That was a great experience. Probably more so than this state title. That was just a great experience at Basha. Coached both my sons, and they were both good, so that helped.
So what was your favorite part of coaching your sons?
Probably my younger son, his junior year, he wasn't quite good enough to start. And I'd come home and my wife, after Friday night, she goes, he didn't play much. What are you doing? This is your son, you know. Why isn't he playing more? I said, he's not good enough yet. And there was a guy in front of him at tight end who was pretty good. I said, he just got to wait his time, but he was playing special teams, and she just didn't quite understand why he didn't. I said, he's got to be better than everybody else, or I can't play him, because everybody would question that. So I always had told the kids, you got to be better than anybody else for me to start you and give you honors. Well, his next year he became all-state first-team tight end in 5A. So he, you know, gradually improved to the point where he was a great player. And so that was probably a great benefit. Both boys, Shane and Ryan, really bought in to becoming an outstanding athlete, student athlete.
Mm-hmm. And if they remained involved in sports?
They have. I mean, my one son is a trainer, and he's teaching people how to get rid of stress, breathe, and he's got his own corporation where he's working with people on stress relieving kind of exercises, breathing techniques, and it surprises me. I've been to a couple of those breath works, and they're just awesome.
What's the name of his company?
Now.
Okay.
And body, mind, yeah. So he's got a corporation. And then my other son he works for a mortgage company. He coached for a while, but there's just not any money in it.
Yeah. So when you retired, a quote that we found on the web about your retirement, you said, "I had a great run and opportunity. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but that doesn't mean I have to do it until I die."
Well, I should have retired sooner. 2017, I finally walked away. But, you know, when your health starts going south, you kind of appreciate those good years that you were working, and you could have been, you know, probably, because now my favorite pastime is golf and fish. I do that as much as I possibly can, and then obviously being with my wife is just, we've had a great run, and she retires soon, I think, and so when that all comes to being, we're gonna enjoy life and relax a little bit.
Where do you like to fish?
Up in the White Mountains. We got a place up in Pine Top.
Okay.
So all the lakes and streams up there.
All right. And tell us a little bit about your wife, besides what you just
told us. We met at a country bar, and it was kind of 5-year, 6-year romance. And she finally sat me down and said, "Are we going to get married or not?" And so we did. And then that's probably the truth, because I was single and real crazy, but it really settled me down, and I credit my wife with my maturity and my growing up and my responsible attitude towards things, the little things that make a difference in success, that I probably wasn't really doing when I was younger. I was an assistant up until then. I became a head track coach, and we had won a couple city titles, but nothing statewide. Okay. And then that really changed things.
And as I understand it, in 2016, you received the Fran and Frank Cush Lifetime Coaching Achievement Award.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was, Frank was, my dad was good friends with Frank. And so back when his son, David Cush, was a quarterback at Tempe, I was the offensive coordinator. And so Frank came up to me and he said, "Look," he always called me Timmy for some reason, but he goes, "Timmy, look, I want to make sure you know what you're doing, so come up to Tonazona with us." So I went up there for a whole week, got to spend a whole week with their coaches and players and everything, and got to learn quite a bit, obviously, and then got to get Frank's okay that I could coach his son. So that was a good experience. And then he was at this award ceremony, and the whole family got to come. And my oldest son is from a previous marriage is Sean, and he even got to come, and he's like 50 now. So that was just a great night for the whole family.
Yeah, it's quite an honor. So you mentioned Frank Cush. So who are some of the coaches out there that we might know that have been your role models?
Well, I've always kind of stuck with Vince Lombardi, God, family, and Tempe High. That's kind of how I patterned, and I've lived my life that way. So I would pick him, and there's obviously been a lot of X's and O coaches, but he's been one that has just had a great philosophy of life that really has stuck with me throughout my career.
So why do you think you were so successful at coaching?
I had great leaders when I was young, that were, I didn't realize some of them at the time and wasn't able to thank them at the time because I was maturing and growing up. And then when I look back and they were no longer there, they had a big impact on my life. Alan Benedict, and Jim Lambeth, and Jim Murphy, and Glenn Alford. And it was a big influence on Doug Conley in track. And they were hard workers, and they, worked until, and when it was all done, win or lose, you had fun afterwards. You enjoyed life. You didn't just carry things with you and, have a bad attitude or a negative attitude about the kids or about the program or about yourself. You moved on from that and tried to build on the next week.
How do you hope that your athletes that you coached remember you?
Probably the most important thing I would think was fair. And I did hear at a clinic one time, the coach said, you have to discipline your best athlete the hardest. You can't give anything away to your best athlete. That's the one, and if everybody sees that you're going to discipline your best athlete, then nobody's got an easy road. And so I always tried to do that. I always tried to be tough with the best athlete, and fair, but tough. And then I would like them to remember that, to respect everybody. You give respect, you get respect. And that kind of thing, that where you live your life that way, where it's a positive influence on people around you. Adults, you treat them with respect. And then we used to always make kids tell, if they had to call their mom and say, can you come pick me up? Because that was always happened. You got to tell your mom you love her. Oh, they used to hate that. They just would, really? Yep, you can't get off that phone until you do that. And they would. And the moms would always say thank you because they found out that's what we were doing.
Excuse me. So what have you enjoyed most about living in Tempe?
Well, obviously when we moved here it was 5,000 people, small town. I mean, south of Southern was cotton fields. I mean, we used to go hunting out behind South Mountain, and that was where International Harvester Proving Grounds was. There wasn't anything. No Albuquerque, nothing south of Southern. And so I enjoyed the small town, the one school, and then my sophomore year they opened up McClintock, so we went on double session. So we split up half of our friends, and they went to McClintock. But as Tempe grew, it still kept that unique small town feel. It's never gotten so big, and so it just seems like it's always been something that they have kept this community relationship in this town. As long as I've been here.
Okay.
I mean, we moved away and moved to Chandler when my kids went to Basha. We couldn't wait to get back to Tempe. And now we're, back in Tempe again, living.
Say more about that.
Well, I grew up at Del Rio and Mill Avenue. Then when we moved away, we moved to different places in Tempe that were older part of Tempe. They were, when I was going to college and when I was first started teaching. But, you always come back to your roots, so to speak. And this is a great move for us, being back here. Center of the world, so to speak, Tempe. Everything we're interested in. I mean, my brother went to ASU, graduated. I graduated from ASU. My youngest son graduated from ASU. My sister worked 30 years at ASU. My mom worked 30 years in the housing office. My wife has worked 30 years at the Sun Angel Foundation, now at the ASU Foundation. And my dad was one of the co-founders of the Tempe Touchdown Club, which is a big supporting football group for Frank Cush back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So, I mean, everything we've done has been around ASU, and it's been a great experience, a great run.
So how is, I've taught at ASU, by the way, for 27 years, but how has ASU changed from your perspective?
Well, I'm not sure I understand why they keep building buildings when I had, my one son, he took 15 hours and none of them were in the classroom. And they were all online. I go, why do they keep building these buildings that nobody's in? But I'm sure they're full.
A lot of research buildings.
Yeah. And so that's what I found out. And then we've had the same seats at Sun Devil Stadium for football. I think the accomplishments that ASU's had in different sports has been a pleasure, but I think the academic standards that Crow's done right now have been a big plus.
Yeah.
The improvement, instead of a party school, it has become a research school. Yeah. And it's been very positive move.
And I don't know if you've seen this, but the NCAA recently released academic grades for the universities, and you know what university now is at the top of the Pac-12.
Right.
ASU,
yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah.
Yes. So those are all positive things that are going to reflect on that. Now, there's some things athletically that aren't going so good, and we're not very proud of. That I think there's going to be some big ramifications come down.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah. So what are your favorite places in Tempe these days to shop, to dine, entertainment?
Well, we have a date night once a week, me and the wife, and so we have gone to different. We used to go to the Outback, get a steak. Then we would go to Rigatoni's, which is an Italian food place on Warner. And now we have got Longhorn Steakhouse is our favorite place. So we go there every Tuesday.
What makes it your favorite place?
It's just good, and it's good price. I mean, especially with the situation with the cost of beef and the cost of everything has gone up, and they're not raising their prices. And their quality is still pretty good. But our favorite thing, I think, is going up to Pine Top. We just love going up in the summer. We just enjoy that so much.
How much cooler is it there?
Well, on the average, probably 25 degrees cooler than whatever. It's 7,200 feet, our condo is. And so you go out in the morning and it's 48 degrees, when here it's 98. It doesn't get much under 100. And then, the evenings are cool. It may get up to 90 for an hour. That's it. And they get more rain up there, obviously.
Nice. Has faith or spirituality had a role in your life?
Yes, my mom was, when we moved to Tempe, we became members of the St. Augustine's Parish. And I was in 4th grade. And I became an acolyte. Because my mom was pretty adamant that we were getting up and going to church every Sunday. And so it wasn't hard for me to become an acolyte for the next 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's been my foundation, and my upbringing is from my mom's side. She has been a devout Christian, and that is so important to me, and I'm thankful.
And I think you mentioned that your mom is still alive, right?
Yeah, she's 102.
Wow.
She's living in assisted living in Chandler, but I go over and see her every day, and she didn't eat for like 25 days, and we thought she was going to die. And we don't know how she survived, and then all of a sudden she started eating every day again. So she's a tough lady.
To what do you attribute her long life?
God's got a plan for all of us, and we better, just abide by it. And with no questioning much. And that was something that really was taught to me at a young age. And follow that plan and enjoy life.
Okay. Are there any other community organizations that you've been involved in throughout your
Well, I'm on 4 boards.
Tell us about them.
I'm on the HOA board for our neighborhood, Altamirada, which my wife put me up to. She convinced me to do that, which has been interesting. I'm on the Tempe All-City Association, which honors athletes at all the high schools for fall, winter, and summer sports programs. And it's an outstanding organization. It's been since the 80s in Tempe. One of the only cities that does this. And, it's just a great organization. So I'm on that board. I'm on the Arizona High School Coaches Hall of Fame board, which is for, obviously, the state of Arizona. And then I'm on the Buffalo Foundation, which is a group that supports Tempe High students, and we give money to clubs, classrooms, or sports when they apply for it, up to $1,000, and we probably give anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 to Tempe High groups. They couldn't afford to do things without that.
Wow, that's wonderful. You're busy in the community. So for people who are not engaged in the community, what words of wisdom can you share with them about why and how to get involved?
Well, I kind of look at that like I would tell my kids, be involved in school. Even if you're not a great athlete, or you're not a great in a club or science club or music or dance, whatever, be involved in the school. And it makes time go faster, for one thing, and it's more enjoyable. And it's a great experience, and you get to know people that you wouldn't know, and that's what I'm trying to do as an adult. I'm trying to continue to expand my knowledge and my interest in the community by being involved.
A lifelong learner.
Yep.
Yeah. Have your travels around, you've said a little bit about this, have your travels around the state or travels outside the state influenced the way you look at Tempe?
Yeah, I go to coaches clinics and go to cities that I've never been to before, and be interested in kind of how you compare the metropolitan Phoenix area to every place else. And then I got involved in the Down Under Bowl, which we went to Australia 9 times. And we took a high school football team that graduated from high school. We'd take them down and then play Australians in American football. These were guys in Australia that couldn't play rugby anymore because they got a little bit too slow and a little bit too overweight to run, because rugby, you never stop running. Where football, you got 25 seconds, So they loved that aspect of it. So being down in Australia was just a kick. It was a great experience, and became friends with a number of players and teachers and professionals in Australia and they're great people. It was a awesome experience, and it expanded my knowledge about community in a different way because it was a whole different country. And from every place I've been, I don't want to go anywhere else. I've been here all my life, and I'm not leaving. I really do love it.
So if you've talked about this a couple times during the conversation, so if somebody is considering moving to Tempe, they live somewhere else, either another part of the valley, another part of Arizona, or another part of the country, what would you tell them about why they should think about moving to Tempe?
Well, first of all, you need to be involved in the community. I would tell them, don't come here if you're not gonna. I mean, anybody can just live somewhere. If you want to get involved and be part of making this a better place to live, for not just yourself, but for your family and for businesses and for education, for schools, everything. This is what I see as Tempe. It's a total community, and not every community has that. And I think because we stayed small, it has really helped us develop that.
Okay, thank you. From your perspective, how have attitudes toward cultural diversity changed in Tempe over your lifetime?
Well, I mean, Tempe has gone from a little bit of a diverse population to an inner city school. Mm-hmm. And my time there, you've really seen that change. But as far as diversity, it's just good for the whole nature of being a human being, and you got to experience that, and you got to grow with each other, and you got to trust each other. And there were some nationalities that maybe wouldn't trust, let's say, me as a white coach, and they were Tongan, especially Tongans. I had some Tongans. They were very slow at trusting you, but once they trusted you, once you got their commitment, they'd do anything. And that was a great experience. And to have, I mean, 5 of my best friends I have their number in my phone. Are kids that played for me that are in different cultures.
So what was it about you that made them come to trust you?
Being fair, I think, was first, and you got to be careful nowadays. But I loved them. Mm-hmm. I did care about them, and I think they knew that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how about the city of Tempe as a whole? How has the diversity of the city changed as a whole during your lifetime?
Well, I think ASU's had a role in that, but I remember when I can't remember what their group, but there was back when the Phoenix 40 was buying up Phoenix, and there was a number of businessmen in Tempe back in the 80s that started buying up Tempe, and I was going, what are they doing here? They know something we don't know, and obviously they know now because you see downtown Tempe, where they bought the land, has really developed into a whole different community than it used to be. Mm-hmm. Now it has diversity. Yes, it's had a big impact on that too, because I think that's good for our community. That keeps us from just being, stagnant. We've learned to grow and evolve as a community, and it's just good for us.
Okay. How would you like your family and friends to remember you?
Well, I think I always talk about my friends, and one of the things that I really point to is, could I trust them with my money, my kids, and my wife?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else related to your life in Tempe, or your family, or your work, or other experiences that you'd like to have recorded today? Anything that we've not talked about?
Well, I might need to check my notes here because I did write down some things that I didn't want to forget.
Okay.
I was a ski club sponsor for 12 years at Tempe High.
All right, tell us about that.
That was just a great experience. I mean, we would take 40 kids in a bus up to Salt Lake City, or we would take them to Mammoth Mountain in California, or we would take them to Durango in Colorado. And you never knew what you were getting into. These were high school kids, and I remember we were going to Salt Lake City one year, and it was like my second year of being the sponsor, and I went to the middle of the bus, and we were halfway to Flagstaff, and all of a sudden I smelled marijuana. And I'm looking at the bathroom door, and this girl comes out, and her parents are really good friends with my family. And if you get caught with alcohol or drugs, you get sent home. Boom, right there, and your parents have to pay for it. That was part of the agreement. Well, I said, well, when we get to Flagstaff, we got to send you home. And she goes, and then this is McClintock had a ski club, Marcos had a ski club, and so did Corona. So she goes, well, there's a whole lot of stuff on this bus, just to let you know. And I go, what? And she goes, I said, well, give me what you have. She pulled out a bag of marijuana that was like this big. And I remember opening the window. They had those little windows in the bus, and I just threw it out. And all the kids go, oh no. And I went, wait a minute, we got some problems here. So we got to Flagstaff, and I said, look, here's the deal, we're going home. If I don't see everything that's on this bus in this bag, we're gonna turn around and go home. And I'm gonna refund everybody all their money. So me and the other sponsors leave, go get something to eat. We come back, there's 6 bags of booze. There's 12 cases of beer, there's marijuana, there's pills, there's all of it. And the bus driver looked at that and he goes, it's a federal law, I gotta confiscate this. So I said, I don't care, because they only go to Page and then they get a new driver's. So I said, okay, I think we got everything off our bus. So I told the other schools, I said, you guys, you better be careful. Well, they didn't do anything about it. And then we became the police because we didn't have anything, all the Tempe kids. And we turned in all the other schools, and there was like 12 kids sent home that trip from the other schools. So nobody liked us, we became the snitches. But after that, we started doing luggage checks. And we couldn't get on the bus until you had your luggage checked. So it pretty much solved that problem. But in 1908, my dad was 4 years old, and my grandmother, his mom, left her husband in St. Louis and got on a train and came out here to Tempe, Arizona. Went to a Chinese food restaurant and died of food poisoning. My dad was 4. My grandpa had to come out and pick him up. That was a strange story, and then we ended up moving out here. That might be why we came here.
Wow. Oh my word.
Yeah.
Wow.
Other than that, in 1972, I won the Arizona Decathlon Championships, and I had gotten one of our athletes at Tempe High to go in the high school division. I said, okay, I'll go in the open division. I didn't expect anything but Fred Mortensen went in the high school divisions with me, and he won the high school division, and I won the open division in 1972. That was, a surprise for me.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then me and the wife been married for 35 years and just enjoyed every bit of it.
So what do you owe the longevity of your marriage?
Her.
Okay.
She put up with me, which is extremely hard.
Okay.
As a coach, I think you were talking about it earlier. You know the time, and it just, there was some times, a funny story, she just found out probably 10 years after this happened, but I came home, we were doing this Tempe relays, Winzuko relays, big meet, 30 teams there, it was a lot of work. All the assistant coaches would meet every night, get lane assignments, and flights and everything else done. Well, I came home and her sister called and said, "Hey, how you doing? Is Joyce available?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "What'd you get her for her birthday?" Oh, I spaced it out. So I got off the phone and I said, "Okay, I gotta go." So I started throwing things and I acted like I was all really mad, and she's going, "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, it's just so irritating." I went down and I had your cake and they didn't have it ready, and they had the presents and they weren't, well, this was Smitty's. This was Smitty's, and Smitty's was, they had everything. They had clothes, they had everything, and it wasn't just a grocery store. So I went down there, I said, "I'm going to pick it up," and this is terrible. So I go down there and the bakery's closed, and there's some cleaning lady back there, and I said, "Come here." She couldn't speak English, and I can't speak Spanish, so I had to write it down, and I said, "You are gonna put happy birthday, Joyce." "Okay, do that." And I said, "Yes, you are." So anyway, she did. I remember my wife looking at that, and she goes, "This is terrible." And I had presents wrapped. I wrapped them in the parking lot and everything else. Well, 10 years later, one of my friends at one of my retirement.
It was a roast.
Oh, roast, yeah, being 50 or 60, I don't know, and he ended up telling her the truth. That was the first time she heard about it. Anyway.
That's a good one. What's that plaque?
Oh, this is, so I could try to remember everything. Actually, Tempe,
There you go.
All City, this is what they give you when, you get inducted into their Hall of Fame. And out of all the plaques I've got, this has everything about my honors in life on it that have to do with coaching.
It's a long list.
Yeah, and so the only other thing that's probably was an honor I got in 2018 was National Coaches Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So that was a big honor that I got to go back to North Dakota and receive that. So.
What an accomplished coach. Wow.
Well, yeah, when you get old, they tell everybody they give you stuff,
Well, you've earned it, and and it's clear why you've earned it and how. So one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to other people in the room. What's the greatest life lesson that you have learned in your years?
Well, to be patient and trust the Lord.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
Okay.
And I'm not always able to do that. Sometimes I become impatient, and sometimes I think I can control things that I have no control over. And then I learned a hard lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But I have gotten better in my years.
That's good. That's good. So let me turn it over to other people in the room. Are there questions that others want to ask?
I was going to ask your favorite event, but it sounds like the 400, the 800 for your gym.
Well, I mean, obviously football was my favorite, but and then actually basketball was second, and track was third. It's just all I could do. That's what I was left to do. And I remember I'd be in track and my ligament, my cartilage would lock, my knee would lock, and I'd fall down. And everybody laughed at me, and they thought I was just clumsy, but it was just part of it. And so, I mean, probably the only good thing is it kept me out of Vietnam. That's all that I can think of.
Yeah. Impressive time. Still hold the record?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah, and I used to really enjoy that because I could, not that I'd brag about it, but people would see it and say, "Hey, is that you?" And I go, "Yeah." But now they know how old I am. So, I mean, they see when it was said, so it's not quite as nice.
And for the record, tell everyone who asked the question.
I'm Elizabeth Pratt. I ran track with Coach McBurney in 99 through 2003 at Tempe High.
Do you have a favorite memory to share?
1 year, it was my first year there. He was having his 50th birthday, and all the other coaches, they all had a great time hanging out with each other, and they brought dinosaur cake. They said, they had a big picture of a dinosaur, and they said, "You're as old as a dinosaur." And so we were all excited that we all celebrated with cake. And
Was that down at Tucson?
not that
That one?
year. It was right before Tucson.
Yeah.
And then later we went down to Tucson and we got to stay overnight in a hotel if you were running both events both days.
That was the state meet, yeah.
So they had the state meet down there, and me and my friends played a joke on the coaches and wrote love notes from one of the female coaches to the male coaches, and so we'd slip those under the doors, and we thought it was so funny, but they stopped answering their door after the first or second knock, but we had about 20 of them that we stashed under there. We always teased him about his tan line with his socks, and I'm sure he still has it.
Thank you.
And I probably also ought to mention my grandson, Cole, who's a yellow shirt in the Navy, from my oldest son, who's 50, and then my newest granddaughter, which my wife is in hillbilly heaven right now because we got a granddaughter, and she's cute as can be. That's a big enjoyment for us right now.
That's great. That's great. Anyone else?
Who were some of the coaches or faculty that you enjoyed working with at Tempe High?
Well, I tried to be involved, like if the English department was having a get-together, I'd go. I mean, coaches usually didn't go to other departments get-togethers. I tried to do that just because I wanted to be, I wanted everybody to feel that I was part of their experience, and I wanted them to be part of ours. And because I had to go to them sometimes and say, hey, we have an issue with one of our kids that's in your class and is on my team, and we've got to try to fix this. And so if I had a good relationship that way, it really helped. So, but Alan Benedict was a good influence. He was a head football coach at the time. Jim Lameth, great man, great influence when I was youngest, in the 70s. That had a big impact on me. And then one of my best friends today, Glenn Alford, we coach wrestling and football, and he followed me to Basha, and we've just been friends ever since.
I'm McKelkini here. Sports are such a big part of your life. Are there things you do now individually or as a couple to exercise in Tempe? Like, do you walk in the winter, or play pickleball, or go to the gym? What do you do?
Well, I just bought a pickleball racket. In fact, being on the HOA and in charge of landscape for our community, we have 2 tennis courts. And about 6 months ago, I said, hey, we need to paint pickleball lines on the tennis courts. And the whole board goes, what?
Okay.
They said, no, we're not. I said, look, trust me, this is taking over America. And they go, all right, we'll do 1 court. That's it. So they did 1 court. The next meeting, they had 8 people there going, why did only 1 court? We want both courts done. Because it's been a very popular sport, but we haven't done that yet. But we play golf together.
Oh, okay.
We love playing golf with each other. And she, is learning to love the game. And the more she plays, the better obviously she gets. And so it's becoming more fun. And it's great exercise for us. And we have couples that we play with. So it's a little expensive, but it's very enjoyable. And then we try to exercise together, as much as we can. But I just don't like the heat anymore. 47 years of coaching has ruined me for summer. I hate it here. I can't stand it.
That's why you go to Pine Top.
Yep, exactly. I
Right.
can't wait to get up there.
You mentioned Tempe's Center. I don't know the cross streets for that.
The what?
Can you share where that is, Tempe?
It's
For those who don't know?
at University and Mill,
Okay,
and it's nothing like it looks now.
okay.
I mean, this was, there was a 31 flavors where the high rise is right now.
Uh-huh.
And we used to always get our ice cream there. And there was the teepee of the toys. And that was the big toy store. It was just brickies, furniture, and we knew everybody in the center. There was a drugstore in that center. There was El Rancho food market. So my mom and dad knew everybody in that center, and it was just like everybody was friends. You'd go into a store and they knew who you were, and they knew you were so-and-so's son or daughter. It was a really small time community, but it was very tight knit. And I really enjoyed that, but the center's gone.
Yeah.
Basically gone.
Thank you.
I don't think I can express enough how much we appreciate you as a coach, as a parent of high school kids. We were really amazed at the influence that coaches could have in their academic and personal successes in high school. We're grateful that it seems like the coaches, you have much more that you delve into besides just the game. It's the preparation, your personal responsibility coming to the team. And you're dealing with high school students here, teenagers, and I'm thinking you're just miracle workers. And I would assume that you must have influenced thousands and thousands through your
Yeah,
career.
we all did. We had a great staff at Tempe. There was a time when it was so enjoyable to go to work. I mean, not everybody can say that about their job. We couldn't wait to get up in the morning and go to work. And whether it was a classroom or whether it was on the field or in the gym, it was just a great feeling because you knew you're going to be around great kids, and you knew they had a great support group at home. Now, as Tempe changed in diversity and it became more single parents, it became tougher, and you had to evolve as a coach and a teacher to help that young man or woman evolve into a man or a woman, from adolescent. So that became tougher for all of us, and we had to communicate with each other and talk about each other, to each other about certain kids that were having issues at home. I mean, I remember when I left Tempe and went to Basha, and the security guard at Basha said, "We got an issue with your kid, your football player." And I said, "What is it?" He goes, "He won't take off his hat." And I said, "That's not an issue. An issue is their brother got shot last night, or their mom got put in jail last night. That's an issue." And that's what we had to, that was tough. So I look at all teachers and coaches that are on inner city schools today. It's a tough job. Oh, it's so tough. I just know because it wasn't once a day or once a week. It was every period there was an issue. My last 10 years with different kids, and they, most of the time they respond as long as you were invested in their life. They felt like you cared. They would respond. It was that simple. You just had to really show them that I'm here for you. And if you do me wrong, I'm not going to stay. And they wouldn't most of the time. There was sometimes that we had to turn away kids that had too many problems and couldn't evolve. I don't know if that answers it, but I just think we had great coaches. We had we worked together to do that. And there wasn't any one of us that was better than anybody else. It was as a group.
My heartfelt thanks to you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you for your great.
Well, thanks for good
influence.
parenting too, because you guys made it easier for us. We had great kids. I really mean that. We were really fortunate.
Tim, is there anything else you'd like to tell us before we wrap up?
No, I think I covered everything
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us this evening. And we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate that all you've done for young people throughout your life.
It was a great career and very lucky. Now, I would like to say, is there anything I missed to my wife? Nothing? Good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.